The alarm system screamed across every military base on Earth. In the command center, deep beneath Seoul, Commander Jin-Ho Park stared at the holographic display floating above his desk. 3,000 red dots had appeared at the edge of the solar system. Each dot represented a warship larger than anything humanity had ever built. Jin-Ho's second officer burst through the door, his face pale. "Sir, the scans are confirmed. It's an invasion fleet. They just sent us a message." The hologram shifted to show a creature standing on what appeared to be a massive bridge. The alien was tall, with dark blue skin and 4 arms. Its eyes glowed orange as it spoke in perfect English, though the voice carried a mechanical edge from the translation device. "Primitive humans of Earth, I am Emperor Valther of the Kuldrith Empire. We have conquered 47 star systems. Your world is now ours. You have 24 of your hours to surrender completely. Refuse, and we will erase your species from existence. This is your only warning." The message ended. Silence filled the command center. Every person in the room knew what this meant. Earth had always wondered if aliens existed. Now they had their answer, and it was the worst possible scenario. Jin-Ho pressed a button on his desk. "Get me Dr. Yuna Kim. Tell her it's time." Across the planet, world leaders gathered in emergency meetings. In New York, the President of the United States stood before cameras, trying to calm a panicking population. In Beijing, Moscow, London, and dozens of other cities, the same scene played out. Humanity had united many times before for different reasons, but never like this. Never with extinction staring them in the face. Dr. Yuna Kim walked into the command center 30 minutes after the message arrived. She carried a small tablet and looked surprisingly calm for someone who had just learned about an alien invasion. She was the head scientist of something called the Aurora Project, though very few people knew what that actually meant. "They're right on schedule," Yuna said quietly, sitting down next to Jin-Ho. "Exactly where we predicted they would arrive." Jin-Ho nodded slowly. "How long until the array is ready?" "It's been ready for 3 years," Yuna replied. "We're just waiting for them to get into position." High above Earth, on a defense station called Fortress Prime, Captain Doyan Choi watched the alien fleet through his sensors. The Kuldrith ships were moving slowly through space, taking their time. They clearly didn't consider humanity a threat. Why would they? From their perspective, humans had barely left their own planet. Earth's most advanced spaceships were tiny compared to the massive alien warships. Doyan received a coded message from Jin-Ho, just 2 words. "Stay ready." He sent back a simple confirmation and continued watching. His station had a crew of 200 people, all of them trained for this exact moment. They had practiced the procedures 1,000 times. They knew their roles perfectly. But practice was different from the real thing. Doyan could feel the tension in the air as his crew watched the alien fleet grow closer. On Earth, people flooded the streets. Some prayed in churches, mosques, and temples. Others gathered with their families, holding each other close. The internet exploded with messages, theories, and panic. News channels showed the same images over and over. The alien ships, the Emperor's message, and experts trying to explain what would happen next. But nobody knew the truth. Nobody except a small group of people who had been preparing for this day for 15 years. In the command center, Jin-Ho pulled up another screen. This one showed defensive positions throughout the solar system. To anyone else, it would look like Earth had some satellites and a few space stations. Nothing that could stop an invasion fleet. But Jin-Ho knew better. He knew about the 6,000 hidden platforms floating in space, invisible to most sensors. He knew about the quantum generators positioned on the dark side of Mercury, constantly gathering energy from the sun. He knew about the weapon system that could turn the entire solar system into a death trap. Should we try to negotiate? Asked a general who had joined the meeting via video call. "Maybe we can buy more time." "They won't negotiate," Yuna answered. "We've studied 40 years of their communications. The Caldrith Empire doesn't negotiate with species they consider inferior. They conquer, they control, or they destroy. Those are the only 3 options in their culture." "Then we're going to die," the general said, his voice hollow. Jinho shook his head. "No, we're not." The alien fleet passed Neptune. Then Uranus. They were moving steadily toward Earth, taking 2 days to cross distances that would have taken human ships months. Their technology was clearly far more advanced. The Caldrith ships traveled in perfect formation, thousands of weapons pointed forward. They had done this before. This was routine for them. On the second day, Emperor Valther sent another message. This time, he was laughing. "Humans, we have detected your primitive weapons. Your missiles, your lasers, your chemical explosives. They are amusing. We have shielding that makes us immune to everything you possess. I almost pity you. Almost. Surrender now, and we will allow 10% of your population to live as servants. Refuse, and we will turn your planet into dust." The message played on every screen across Earth. Riots broke out in some cities. Military forces tried to maintain order, but fear was spreading faster than they could control. Some people tried to flee to remote locations, hoping to hide. Others accepted their fate and spent time with loved ones. But in the command center, Chino remained calm. He watched the alien fleet cross the orbit of Saturn. Then Jupiter. With each passing hour, they came closer to Earth. And with each passing hour, they moved deeper into the trap. "They're approaching Mars orbit," Doyan reported from Fortress Prime. "All stations confirm ready status." Jinho took a deep breath. 15 years of preparation pinned down to this moment. 15 years of secrets, of hidden construction, of quietly building weapons that nobody knew existed. Earth had appeared weak and helpless, and that had been intentional. The Caldrith expected an easy victory. They expected humanity to beg for mercy. They were wrong. Jinho opened a channel to every defense station in the solar system. Thousands of soldiers, scientists, and officers heard his voice. He spoke just 2 words, the code phrase that would change everything. "Stars remember." The alien fleet crossed into Mars orbit, their weapons charging for the final attack on Earth. Emperor Valther smiled on his bridge, already planning how he would divide the conquered planet among his generals. He had no idea that he had just seconds left to live. 15 years earlier, a small research station near the moon detected something unusual. The object was drifting slowly through space, clearly not from Earth. Dr. Minho Lee was the first person to see it through the telescope. It looked like a small probe, maybe 3 meters long, damaged and dark. No lights, no power signature. Just a piece of alien technology floating alone in the void. The governments of Earth made a decision that day. They kept the discovery completely secret. No public announcements. No press conferences. Only a small group of scientists and military leaders knew the truth. They brought the probe to a hidden facility in the mountains of South Korea, where Minho and his team spent 6 months carefully opening it. Inside, they found something incredible. The probe contained a data storage device with information about dozens of alien civilizations. Star maps, technology blueprints, cultural records, and most importantly, information about something called the Caldrith Empire, a powerful military force that had been conquering worlds for centuries. Minho brought his findings to Colonel Hana Song, a military strategist known for thinking differently than other officers. Hana read the data carefully, taking weeks to understand what they had discovered. Then she called a meeting with world leaders and told them the truth. "We are not alone in the universe," Hana said, standing before presidents and prime ministers in a secure bunker. And we are far behind. The alien species described in this data have technology that is hundreds, maybe thousands of years ahead of ours. If they find us, we cannot win a traditional war. Then what do? Asked the American president. We prepare, Hannah answered. We use every advantage we have. And we make sure that if someone comes to conquer us, they regret it. That meeting created the Aurora Project. The world's governments agreed to spend enormous amounts of money in secret, building a defense system unlike anything humanity had ever attempted. They needed something that could stop an advanced alien fleet. Something unexpected. Something that used human creativity in ways aliens might not anticipate. Dr. Yuna Kim joined the project 2 years after it started. She was a physicist who specialized in quantum mechanics, and she brought an idea that seemed impossible. What if we could use quantum entanglement to create weapons that draw power directly from the sun? She asked during her first meeting with the Aurora team. What if we could position these weapons throughout the solar system and activate them all at once? Minho thought she was crazy. Quantum entanglement doesn't work like that. We can't transfer energy through entangled particles. Not with current technology, Yuna agreed. But the alien probe had references to something called quantum tunneling for energy transfer. I think we can adapt it. They spent 3 years just trying to prove the theory was possible. Hundreds of scientists worked in hidden facilities across Earth, all of them sworn to secrecy. Slowly, step by step, they made progress. They discovered that human brains seemed naturally good at understanding quantum mechanics in ways that other species, according to the probe data, struggled with. It was a small advantage, but they used it. Meanwhile, Yoonji Kwan led a team of engineers building the actual weapon platforms. Each platform was small, about the size of a car, covered in stealth materials that made them nearly invisible to most sensors. They were simple in design, but incredibly powerful. Each one could create a localized gravity field strong enough to crush metal into a tiny sphere. The trick is making them all work together, Yoonji explained to Hana during a demonstration. One platform isn't enough to stop a large ship, but 6,000 platforms, all activating at the exact same moment, targeting the same fleet. That's different. The construction took years. They built the platforms in secret factories on Earth and launched them quietly during regular commercial space missions. Nobody noticed. The platforms drifted to their positions throughout the solar system, hiding near planets and asteroids. Waiting in darkness. They positioned quantum energy collectors on Mercury, where they could gather solar power without being easily detected. These collectors would feed energy to all 6,000 weapon platforms simultaneously through quantum tunneling, giving each weapon more power than a nuclear reactor. Hana designed the military strategy. She studied every piece of information they had about alien invasions from the probe's data. She learned that most species conquered others by arriving with overwhelming force, expecting immediate surrender. They rarely anticipated resistance from primitive civilizations. We let them think they've already won, Hana told Gino during his training to become the system commander. We look weak. We look scared. We let them come close, and then we hit them with everything at once, before they can react. Jinho was chosen to lead the defense system because he understood patience. He was a military officer who had trained in special operations, learning to wait for exactly the right moment before striking. That skill would be essential. They tested the weapon system carefully, using small asteroids as targets. The results were perfect. Each asteroid was crushed into a dense sphere within seconds. No explosion. No debris. Just pure compression from focused gravity fields. The weapon was silent, efficient, and absolutely devastating. But they needed more than just weapons. They needed intelligence. So Earth secretly launched thousands of tiny listening probes throughout nearby space. These probes monitored alien communications, learning languages, and gathering information about potential threats. That's how they learned the Caldrith Empire was expanding toward Earth's region of space. They'll arrive within 10 to 15 years, Mino calculated after analyzing the communications. We have time to prepare, but not much. The world governments struggled to keep the secret. It was hard to spend trillions of dollars without people noticing. They hid the expenses in regular military budgets, space programs, and scientific research. Some money came from cutting other programs. Some came from secret taxes that citizens never saw. It wasn't fair, but survival rarely was dot by year 10. The Aurora project was complete. 6,000 weapon platforms were in position. The quantum energy collectors were operational. The command systems were tested and ready. All they could do was wait and hope the Caldrith never came. But hope wasn't enough. 2 years ago, the listening probes detected the Caldrith fleet changing course. They were heading directly toward Earth. Jinho and his team watched them come closer, month by month. They calculated the exact route the fleet would take. They prepared for every possible scenario. What if they don't come close enough? Asked Doyan, who had been promoted to captain specifically for this mission. What if they attack from long range? Then we lose, Jinho said simply. But they won't. According to everything we know about their culture, they enjoy making their enemies feel helpless before the final strike. They'll come close. They'll want us to see their ships and understand how weak we are compared to them. Yuna spent those final 2 years making sure every system was perfect. She checked and rechecked the quantum calculations. She ran simulations thousands of times. The weapon system had to work perfectly on the first try. There would be no second chance. The day the Caldrith fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system, Jinho was ready. He had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. 15 years of secrets, planning, and quiet construction. The alien emperor thought he was conquering a primitive world. He had no idea he was flying into the most sophisticated trap humanity had ever built. As Jinho spoke the code words, "Stars remember," into his communication system. Every defense station in the solar system received the activation signal. Yuna's fingers moved across her control panel, initializing the quantum sequence. Doyan and thousands of other soldiers watched their screens, waiting for the moment that would decide humanity's fate. The Caldrith fleet continued forward, confident and unstoppable. Emperor Valther was already composing his victory speech. He had no idea he had less than 5 seconds to live. The moment Jinho spoke the code words, the quantum energy collectors on Mercury activated. Solar energy poured through quantum tunnels faster than light, feeding power to 6,000 weapon platforms simultaneously. The entire process was invisible to the Caldrith sensors. They detected nothing unusual until it was far too late. Yuna watched her screens as the quantum connections established. Green lights appeared across her display, each one representing a weapon platform coming online. 6,000 green lights in less than 1 second. The system was working perfectly. She pressed the final activation button and whispered, "Fire." On the bridge of his flagship, Emperor Valther was reviewing the strategic plans for Earth's occupation when his security officer shouted a warning. "Sir, detecting massive energy spikes throughout the system. Unknown sources. I can't identify." The warning ended there. Inside the flagship and every other Caldrith warship, small points of intense gravity suddenly appeared. These weren't natural gravity fields. They were artificial singularities, miniature versions of black holes, created by the weapon platforms and positioned with perfect precision inside each alien vessel. The physics were brutal and immediate. The singularities pulled everything toward their centers with irresistible force. Metal bent and screamed. Walls collapsed inward. Engines and weapons compressed into tiny spaces. The Caldrith soldiers inside the ships had no time to react, no time to scream, no time to even understand what was happening to them. Emperor Valthar felt his body being pulled in multiple directions at once. The last thing he saw was the walls of his bridge folding in on themselves like paper being crumpled. Then nothing. From Fortress Prime, Doyan watched his sensors with wide eyes. 3,000 red dots representing enemy warships all changed at the same instant. They stopped moving. Their energy signatures collapsed. Their shields failed. And then each massive ship began to shrink. "What am I seeing?" asked his second officer, her voice shaking. "Compression," Doyan answered quietly. "Total compression." The singularities inside each ship pulled all matter toward their centers. The warships, each one the size of a small moon, compressed smaller and smaller. Within 2 seconds, they had shrunk to the size of buildings. Within 4 seconds, they were the size of cars. By the time the process finished at 4.7 seconds, each of the 3,000 Caldrith warships had been reduced to a perfect metal sphere roughly 2 meters in diameter. The singularities collapsed immediately after finishing their work, leaving no trace of their existence except for the 3,000 compressed spheres floating in space. No explosions. No debris fields. No energy signatures. Just silence and perfect metal balls where a mighty invasion fleet had been moments before dot in the command center on Earth. The room was completely silent. Everyone stared at their screens, unable to believe what they were seeing. 15 years of preparation had led to this moment, and it had lasted less than 5 seconds. "Status report," Jinho said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "All weapon platforms functional," Una reported. "Quantum connections stable. No system failures. 0 collateral damage to our infrastructure." "Enemy fleet status?" Jinho asked, though he already knew the answer. "Gone," answered a sensor operator. "I'm detecting 3,000 compressed masses in Mars orbit. Average diameter 2.1 meters. No life signs. No power signatures. No communications. Commander, the entire Caldrith fleet has been eliminated." Jinho closed his eyes for a moment. They had done it. Humanity had faced extinction and won. But he felt no joy, only a heavy weight in his chest. They had just killed millions of living beings in less than 5 seconds. It had been necessary. It had been self-defense. But that didn't make it feel any better. "Send recovery teams to secure the compressed masses," Jinho ordered. "I want every sphere brought to a safe location for study. And send a message to all defense stations. The threat has been neutralized, but maintain alert status. Where there's one fleet, there might be others." Doyan's hands were shaking as he processed what he had just witnessed. He had been in combat before. He had seen weapons destroy ships. But this was different. This was something beyond normal warfare. The Caldrith fleet hadn't been destroyed in a battle. It had been erased, as if someone had simply deleted it from existence. "Captain?" His communications officer called out. "We're receiving messages from Earth. Thousands of them. Everyone wants to know what happened." "Tell them the truth," Doyan said. "The invasion has been stopped. Earth is safe." Across Earth, people watched their screens as the news spread. The alien fleet had vanished. Sensors showed nothing where thousands of warships had been. Some people celebrated. Others fell to their knees in relief. Many simply couldn't process what had happened. The threat that had terrified the entire planet for 2 days was just gone. News. Reporters struggled to explain the situation to confused audiences. Scientists appeared on television trying to describe what might have happened, but they were guessing. The truth about the Aurora project was still classified. The world knew they had been saved, but they didn't know how Dot in the command center. Yuna was already analyzing the weapon performance. The quantum tunneling worked better than our simulations predicted, she told Jinho. We could have targeted twice as many ships if needed. The solar collectors barely used 10% of their capacity. Good, Jinho replied, because I think we're going to need that capacity soon. The Cauldrith Empire is big. When they learn what happened here, they'll send more ships. Maybe a lot more. Let them come, said Hana, who had joined them in the command center. We just proved that size doesn't matter. Technology doesn't matter. What matters is strategy and surprise. We had both. But Hana's confidence was tempered by reality. The surprise was gone now. Whatever humanity did next, the galaxy would be watching. The Aurora project had worked perfectly, but it would never work this well again. Future enemies would be prepared. They would study what happened here and develop countermeasures. We need to go public, Yuna said suddenly. We need to tell Earth's people what we built. They deserve to know how they were saved. Not yet, Jinho disagreed. If we reveal the full details of our weapons, other alien species will learn about them too. The mystery of what happened here is a weapon itself. Let them wonder. Let them fear what else we might have. High above Earth, recovery teams in small spacecraft approached the compressed spheres that had once been warships. Each sphere was smooth and perfectly round. The metal compressed so tightly that it had become almost like liquid before solidifying again. They were cold and lifeless, monuments to the Cauldrith Empire's mistake. One recovery pilot stared at the sphere floating in front of his ship. There were probably 10,000 soldiers on that warship, he said to his co-pilot. And now it's just a ball of metal small enough to fit in a cargo container. Don't think about it, his co-pilot advised. They came here to kill us, to conquer our planet and enslave our people. This was self-defense. I know, the pilot said, but it's still hard to process. We didn't just win a battle. We erased them from existence in seconds. Back in the command center, Jinho received reports from around the solar system. All defense stations were secure. All weapon platforms were powered down and hidden again. The quantum energy collectors on Mercury had returned to standby mode. From space, the solar system looked exactly as it had before the invasion, except for 3,000 metal spheres floating near Mars. What do we do now? Asked a young officer who had been watching everything unfold. Jinho looked at the screens showing Earth below, peaceful and safe. Now we prepare for what comes next. We just announced our presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Every alien civilization will have questions. Some will want to be our friends. Others will want to be our enemies. And some will just want to study us like we're interesting animals. So the war isn't over, the officer said. The war hasn't even started, Jinho replied. This was just the opening move. 3 days after the fleet's destruction, the messages started arriving. Earth's listening probes throughout space detected hundreds of alien communications, all discussing what had become known as the Erasure Event. The news had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Jiwan Bei sat in a dark room filled with computers, translating the alien messages. She was a linguistic analyst who had spent years learning alien languages from the data in the ancient probe. Now her skills were more important than ever. Every message she translated revealed more about how the galaxy was reacting to Earth's demonstration of power. Listen to this one, Jiwan said to her supervisor, playing a recorded communication between two alien species. It's from the Torvik Collective. They're saying the humans appeared primitive. They had barely left their home world, but they destroyed the Cauldrith's greatest fleet in seconds. How is this possible? What else are they hiding? Her supervisor leaned forward. What about the Cauldrith themselves? Have we heard anything from their home worlds? Yes, Jiwan pulled up another file. They're confused and angry. They sent 3 messages demanding to know what happened. They want their emperor returned. They don't seem to understand that he's dead. That everyone is dead. General Jaewon Lim stood behind them, listening carefully. He was in charge of preparing Earth's military for potential retaliation. The Cauldrith will want revenge, he said. Even if they're scared, their culture demands it. We need to be ready for another attack. But this time they'll be prepared, Jiwan pointed out. They'll study what happened. They'll bring different weapons, different shields. The surprise advantage is gone. That was the problem keeping Jino awake at night. The Aurora project had worked perfectly, but it had revealed that Earth possessed advanced technology. Future attackers wouldn't make the same mistakes the Cauldrith had made. They wouldn't fly confidently into Mars' orbit. They would be cautious, careful, and ready for whatever humanity might throw at them. But there was another problem, one that nobody had anticipated. The Galactic Council had finally noticed Earth's existence. The Council was a political organization that included most of the major alien civilizations. According to the data from the ancient probe, the Council generally ignored primitive worlds, considering them not worth their attention. But Earth wasn't primitive anymore, and the Council wanted answers. The message from the Council arrived on the 5th day. It was formal and cold. To the human civilization of planet Earth, you have eliminated a Cauldrith invasion fleet using unknown weapons. The Galactic Council demands your presence to explain this action and demonstrate your intentions. A representative must appear before the Council within 30 of your days, or we will consider humanity a hostile threat to galactic peace. It's a trap, Hana said immediately when she heard the message. They want to intimidate us. They want to see if we're afraid of them. Maybe, Jino agreed, but we can't ignore them either. If the entire Galactic Council decides we're a threat, we'll face attacks from a dozen different species. We can't fight the entire galaxy. So we need to send someone, Yuna said. Someone who can represent humanity and make them understand we're not the aggressors here. They chose Ambassador Sumin Han for the task. Sumin had spent her career in international diplomacy on Earth, negotiating treaties between countries. She was smart, calm under pressure, and had a gift for reading people. Or in this case, reading aliens. Sumin accepted the assignment without hesitation. When do I leave? She asked. As soon as possible, Jinyo told her. We're building a ship for you now. It will have advanced engines based on technology we've developed. Fast enough to reach the council chambers in 20 days. What should I tell them? Sumin asked. How much do we reveal about our capabilities? As little as possible, Hana advised. But make them believe we have more than we actually do. The Aurora project is powerful, but it has limits. The quantum energy collectors can only cover our solar system effectively. Beyond that, the weapons lose accuracy and power. We can't defend colonies on other worlds. We can't project power across the galaxy. But they don't need to know that. Sumin spent 2 weeks preparing. She studied every piece of information they had about the Galactic Council. She learned about the different species, their cultures, their political relationships. She watched videos of how they spoke and moved. She prepared arguments for why Earth had acted in self-defense and why humanity deserved respect, not threats. Meanwhile, more messages arrived from across the galaxy. Some were friendly. A species called the Dralviks sent congratulations and asked to establish trade relations. Another species, the Morith, offered a defensive alliance, suggesting they work together against aggressive empires. But others were hostile. Several species demanded that Earth surrender its weapons technology. A few suggested preemptive strikes against humanity before Earth could become too dangerous. The galaxy is divided, Jiwan reported during a briefing. About 40% of the species we're tracking seem willing to accept us. 30% are openly hostile. The rest are undecided, waiting to see what happens at the council meeting. Then we need to make the meeting count, General Jawan said. We need to show strength without seeming aggressive, confidence without arrogance. It's a thin line to walk. 2 days before Sumin was scheduled to leave, they received a disturbing message. It was from a Caldrith military commander, speaking from one of their colony worlds. Humans of Earth, you have murdered our emperor and destroyed our fleet. We do not know how you accomplished this, but you will pay for it. The Caldrith Empire has hundreds of worlds and thousands of ships. We will return, and next time we will burn your planet to ashes. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The message was played for Sumin during her final briefing. You need to see this, Genio told her, because when you're standing before the Galactic Council, they're going to ask you about it. They're going to want to know if Earth plans to fight a war with the Caldrith. What should I tell them? Sumin asked. Tell them the truth, Genio said. We didn't want this fight. The Caldrith came to conquer us. We defended ourselves. But if they attack again, we will defend ourselves again. And we will keep defending ourselves until they learn to leave us alone. That might not be enough, Yuna said quietly. The Council might decide it's easier to eliminate us than to risk a galactic war between humans and Caldrith. Then Sumin will need to convince them otherwise, Genio replied. She needs to make them understand that humanity isn't the threat. Empires that invade peaceful worlds are the threat. We're just the first species that refused to surrender. On the day of departure, Sumin stood in the hangar looking at the ship that would carry her to the Galactic Council. It was beautiful, built with the best technology Earth could produce. Faster than anything humans had made before. Armed with defensive weapons. And equipped with quantum communication so she could stay in contact with Earth even across vast distances. You're carrying the fate of our species, Genio told her as they prepared for launch. No pressure. Sumin smiled slightly. I've negotiated peace treaties between nuclear powers. I've helped prevent wars that could have killed millions. This is just another negotiation. Except this time, the stakes are billions of lives instead of millions. Can you do it? Hannah asked. I don't know, Sumin admitted honestly. But I'm going to try. Because the alternative is unacceptable. The ship launched quietly, accelerating away from Earth and toward the distant location where the Galactic Council waited. As Sumin watched her home planet shrink in the view screen, she thought about everything humanity had accomplished. They had gone from believing they were alone in the universe to defeating an alien invasion fleet in just 15 years. Now they had to prove they deserved to join the galactic community. Back on Earth, people watched the news reports about humanity's first ambassador to the aliens. Some were hopeful. Others were afraid. But everyone understood that whatever happened at that council meeting would determine Earth's future for generations to come. Sumin Han carried their hopes, their fears, and their determination to survive in a galaxy that had suddenly become much more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous, designed to hold representatives from 200 different species. Sumin walked through the entrance and felt genuinely small for the first time in her life. The ceiling stretched hundreds of meters above her head. The walls glowed with soft light that changed colors slowly. And arranged in a massive circle around the central floor were the seats for each species, rising up in tiers like an ancient amphitheater. Every seat was filled. Every alien species in the chamber was watching her. Some looked curious. Some looked hostile. Others were impossible to read because their faces were too different from human expressions. Sumin took a deep breath and walked to the central platform where she had been instructed to stand. The council speaker was a tall alien with gray skin and 6 eyes arranged around its head. It spoke in a deep voice that the translation device rendered as cold and formal. Human representative, you stand before the Galactic Council to answer for your species' actions. The Caldrith Empire has accused humanity of unprovoked aggression. They claim you destroyed their fleet without warning or negotiation. How do you respond to these charges? Sumin had practiced this moment for weeks. She knew exactly what to say. The Caldrith Empire sent an invasion fleet to Earth. They gave us 24 hours to surrender our entire planet or face extinction. We attempted diplomatic communication, but they refused to negotiate. They considered us primitive and expected us to submit without resistance. We defended ourselves. That is not aggression. That is survival. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some aliens nodded their heads or made gestures that seemed to indicate agreement. Others remained still, their expressions skeptical. A different alien stood up, this one from the Torvective. You claim self-defense, but the manner of the Caldrith fleet's destruction was extraordinary. 47 civilizations fell before that fleet. Yet you eliminated it in seconds. How? What weapons do you possess? This was the critical moment. Sumin chose her words carefully. Humanity has spent years preparing for the possibility of contact with other species. We studied. We planned. We developed defensive capabilities appropriate to protecting our home. The specific details of our technology are classified for obvious security reasons. But I can tell you this. Our defenses are designed to protect, not to conquer. But could they conquer? Asked another representative. If humanity chose to attack other worlds, would your weapons be effective? Many things are possible, Sumin replied calmly. But humanity has no interest in conquest. We have one planet. We want to protect it, develop it, and live in peace. The galaxy has thousands of worlds. We don't need or want any of them. A Caldrith representative stood up, its orange eyes blazing with anger. You speak of peace while our Emperor's body floats in space as a compressed sphere of metal. You murdered millions of our people. The Caldrith Empire demands justice. Sumin turned to face the Caldrith directly. Your empire demands justice? Your Emperor came to my world planning to kill billions of humans. He offered slavery to 10% of our population and death to the rest. He laughed at us. He mocked us. He gave us no choice except submission or destruction. We chose neither. We chose to defend ourselves. If that is murder in your eyes, then perhaps your empire should reconsider its policy of invading peaceful worlds. The chamber erupted in conversation. Some aliens seemed shocked by Sumin's directness. Others appeared impressed. The council speaker called for order, and slowly the noise died down. The council will deliberate on humanity's status, the speaker announced. We will determine if Earth poses a threat to galactic stability, or if your actions were justified. You will wait outside while we discuss. Sumin was escorted to a waiting room. She sat alone for 3 hours, not knowing what was happening in the chamber. She tried to stay calm, but her heart was racing. Everything depended on what these aliens decided. If they declared humanity a threat, Earth could face attacks from multiple species simultaneously. The Aurora project was powerful, but it couldn't fight the entire galaxy. Finally, she was called back to the chamber. The speaker looked at her with all 6 eyes and began to speak. The Galactic Council has reached a decision. After reviewing the evidence and hearing testimony, we find that humanity acted in legitimate self-defense against Caldrith aggression. Earth will be granted provisional membership in the Council, with full rights and protections under galactic law. Relief flooded through Sumin, but the speaker wasn't finished. However, humanity must agree to certain conditions. First, you will share basic information about your defensive capabilities with the Council for security assessment. Second, You will accept council mediators to help establish diplomatic relations with other species. Third, you will allow council observers to visit Earth and verify that you are not developing weapons for aggressive purposes. Sumin considered the terms. They were reasonable, though sharing information about the Aurora project made her nervous. But she had been given authority to negotiate. We accept these conditions with one addition. The Council must guarantee Earth's sovereignty and independence. No species may invade or threaten humanity without facing Council sanctions. The speaker consulted briefly with other Council members. This is acceptable. Earth's sovereignty is recognized and protected under Council authority. Then humanity accepts the Council's offer, Sumin said formally. We look forward to peaceful relations with all species who respect our independence. The announcement was broadcast across the galaxy within hours. Earth, the small planet that had appeared primitive just weeks ago, was now a recognized member of the Galactic Council. The reactions were mixed. Some species celebrated, seeing humanity as a potential ally. Others expressed concern about Earth's mysterious weapons. And the Caldrith Empire remained silent, neither accepting nor rejecting the Council's decision. Back on Earth, Jinho watched Sumin's speech on his office screen. She had done it. She had convinced the galaxy's most powerful political organization to accept humanity as equals. It was a diplomatic victory that would have seemed impossible just a month ago. We have a seat at the table, Yuna said, standing beside him. But now comes the hard part, living up to what they expect. From us, and dealing with the Caldrith, Hana added. The Council recognized our right to self-defense, but that won't stop them from seeking revenge. They're just going to be more careful about it. Jinho nodded slowly. We proved we can defend our home. Now we need to prove we can be good neighbors. That might be even harder. Over the following months, Earth transformed. Alien diplomats arrived to establish embassies. Trade agreements were negotiated. Human scientists began sharing information with alien researchers, carefully revealing some technologies while protecting others. The Aurora project remained classified, but Earth released information about basic quantum mechanics and energy collection systems. The aliens were fascinated by how humans approach these problems differently than other. Species. Captain Doyon Choi was promoted to Admiral and placed in charge of the new interstellar defense force. His mission was to expand Earth's defensive capabilities beyond the solar system as humanity began establishing colonies on nearby worlds. It was slow work, building new weapon platforms and energy collectors for each colony, but necessary. General Jaewon continued preparing for potential conflicts. The Caldrith had made threats, and threats eventually became actions. Earth needed to be ready for revenge attacks, whether they came next year or next decade. Dr. Yuna Kim became a celebrity in the scientific community, both on Earth and among alien species. She gave lectures on quantum mechanics, carefully edited to avoid revealing military secrets. Aliens who attended her presentations were often surprised by human creativity and problem-solving approaches. Some began to understand why Earth had been able to develop such effective weapons, despite being a young civilization. 3 months after the Council meeting, Earth received its first alien request for a defensive alliance. The Dralvik species had been threatened by another aggressive empire and wanted access to human protection. Jinho and the world governments debated for weeks before declining. We're not ready to defend other worlds yet, Jinho explained in the rejection message. We can barely defend ourselves. But we appreciate the trust you've shown in us. More offers came. Trade deals, cultural exchanges, scientific partnerships. Earth carefully evaluated each one, accepting some and declining others. Humanity was learning to navigate galactic politics, making mistakes sometimes, but gradually building a reputation as a species that could be trusted, but not pushed around. 1 year after the erasure event, Jinho retired from active command. He had given 15 years of his life to preparing Earth's defense, and now it was time for younger people to take over. He moved to a small house outside Seoul with a garden where he could grow vegetables and think about anything except alien invasions. Yuna visited him one afternoon, bringing tea and updates about the latest diplomatic developments. The Council wants to establish a joint research station near Earth, she told him. 6 species working together on advanced technology. They want humans included because apparently we think about problems in unique ways. Are we going to accept? Jinho asked, pouring the tea. Probably, Yuna said. It's a good opportunity to learn from other species, while also showing them we're willing to cooperate. Plus, it gives us a way to monitor what technologies other species are developing. They sat in silence for a while, watching birds in the garden. Finally, Jinho spoke. Do you ever think about all the Caldrith soldiers we killed? Sometimes I do. I know it was necessary. I know we saved billions of human lives. But it still bothers me that we erased so many beings from existence in just a few seconds. Yes, Yuna admitted. I think about it too. But I also remember what would have happened if we hadn't acted. The Caldrith would have conquered Earth. Billions of humans would have died or been enslaved. Sometimes there are no good choices, only less terrible ones. Do you think they'll come back? Jinho asked. The Caldrith? Eventually, Yuna said. Their culture demands revenge. But by the time they're ready to try again, we'll be even stronger. We'll have allies. We'll have better weapons. And they'll remember what happened to their emperor's fleet. Jinho smiled slightly. Sometimes the best weapon is the one you never have to use. As long as they believe we can destroy them instantly, they'll think twice before attacking. Is that what we are now? Yuna asked. A species that survives through fear? No, Jinho said firmly. We're a species that survives through preparation, intelligence, and the willingness to defend ourselves. The fear is just a side effect. Back in the command center that Jinho had once led, the new generation of defenders monitored Earth sensors. They watched for threats. They maintained the weapon systems. They prepared for whatever challenges the future might bring. The Aurora project had saved humanity once, but the galaxy was vast and full of dangers. Above Earth, ships from a dozen different alien species came and went, bringing trade goods and diplomats and tourists curious about the small planet that had defeated the mighty Caldrith Empire. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, and while the journey ahead would be difficult, at least they were taking it as equals rather than slaves, and floating in orbit around Mars. 3,000 perfect metal spheres remained as monuments, reminders of the day humanity announced to the galaxy that Earth would not surrender, would not submit, and would defend itself with whatever means necessary. The spheres would stay there for centuries, silent warnings to anyone who might consider humanity an easy target. The galaxy had learned a lesson that day. Humans were not to be underestimated, and in a universe full of powerful empires and ancient civilizations, that was perhaps humanity's greatest achievement of all.